We got a big battle in front of us, baby. And it's just started. So let's get funky like a monkey. For 16 years, the American dream has done it with you. Don't fail me now. No, don't fail me now.
All right. The Wrestlebros are back with Money in the Bank 2021 review. Dun dun dun. Are you okay?
Nah, I'll be alright. I'll be alright, brother.
Thick Blaze. All right. Let's start with the main event. Like we do most of the time.
We start at the top.
Roman Reigns versus Edge for the Universal Championship. Really good match. It started really slow. Maybe a little too slow. But it worked out just fine. If we fast forward to the ending, we have let's see, the finish is what are you doing over there?
Don't worry. Keep talking.
Are you sure?
Yes. Go right ahead. You got my blessing.
All right. If we fast forward to the finish here, we have a ref bump and then madness ensues. The Usos try to come out. We had a little mini botch because you seen the Usos come out basically with the Mysterios. I don't think they were supposed to show the Mysterios right there chilling with the Usos before making that entrance. But yeah, the Mysterios cut them off. More madness. Eventually, Seth Rollins makes his way to the ring. Attacks Edge, which makes no sense. But makes sense, but doesn't make sense. I know why they did it, but
yeah, he's been explaining it on SmackDown for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but you would think he would want to face Edge instead of Roman for 25 different reasons. Edge is older. He has history with Roman. Roman is supposed to be the top dog. Edge should be easier to beat. There's a billion reasons why. But
Edge is a baby face and Roman is a heel.
Well, that's fine. I get
Nobody
that.
wants to see
but that shouldn't matter. I'm not talking about. See, you're thinking of what they were thinking, or why they did it. I know why they did it, to set up Seth Rollins versus Edge. But it's not like I feel like Seth kind of wants the title. It's not necessarily about Edge. It's about the title. So if it's about the title, he should want to face the weaker opponent. And then he also said he was going straight after the title. But he's not, right? He's not going straight after the title. He's going straight after Edge. So that didn't make sense. If he would have kept his mouth shut and just been beefing with Edge, then I would have understood. Either way, it's still good. I know why they're doing it. They're going to do... Well, we'll get to it. Yeah, so Rollins attacks Edge. Roman spears Edge. Twice? Oh, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, wait, twice? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. We get a promo, which of course, if Roman's gonna cut a promo after winning, then we know somebody's gonna show up.
Mm-hmm.
John Cena shows up. He looks so weird wearing his old gear. I wish he would change it up. I think it's time for a new look. I don't hear nothing if you're playing something. If you're playing,
you don't hear nothing? Well, I hope people can hear it. If you can't, then I'll have to work this out.
I hear it now.
Oh, there we go. See, I'll tell you what, when that music played, I have to admit, I've never been that happy to ever see John Cena in my life. I never been so happy to see him. And it's the whole, how can I miss you if you don't go away? And he went away for the better part of 2 years. And
well,
it really the crowd really dug it. It was genuinely, it was a lot of fun. That was a wonderful ending to that show. Great main event. They basically gave you the 2 main event matches at SummerSlam right then and there. It was done very well.
Yeah. So Cena, I'm ready for him to change his gear. But besides that, I was very excited to see him. He's going to be in a high-profile, serious match where he can actually have a wrestling match. Because I know he had the weird match with Undertaker that it was just, let's have a 5-minute, do what we can to make Taker look good. So it wasn't a real match, really. It wasn't a real Cena match. It was like, let's help Taker get through a match.
Absolutely. You know what? At that point, this is what happens. I mean, that year of WrestleMania, obviously, this is John Cena at that moment using his mass amount of equity and doing the job to the Undertaker. Listen, it was a confidence booster to Mark Calloway. It didn't hurt John Cena not one little bit. It was would it have been nicer to get a longer match? Sure, but for the purpose of the story they were telling on that night, it was exactly what you needed.
Well, what I need is to see a great John Cena match, which I haven't seen in what feels like 5 years. And I think we're finally going to get it. So that's exciting. And not because of John Cena. It's just, he's not really there that often. And when he's there, it's kind of quick. And it's like, let's just do something, use them how we can and whatever. But now we have a real match at a huge event. Should be great. Yeah, and they set up Rollins and Edge, so that's going to be great. And then if you watched Raw, Cena came back out and cut a nice promo, so he still got that. That's not going away.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And he said he'll be on SmackDown, so that should be interesting too.
That'll mean an extra 200,000 viewers on Friday night for SmackDown.
Well, let's see, because I think the Olympics start. So they might break even because of Cena, hopefully.
yeah, touche. I'll give you that. I thought the match, listen, from what we talked about last week about this match between Edge and Roman Reigns, I knew it was going to be a fantastic match. And true to form, when I said that the match would go no less than 30 minutes, it was exactly 30 minutes. So that in and of itself was, when you're working 30 minutes, you have to pace yourself. You just can't go at a million miles a minute right from the beginning, because then the match goes nowhere. No matter how much intensity you have, if you don't pace it, the match goes nowhere. Both guys did an outstanding job. Both guys were telling their story. Obviously, in the beginning, Edge was trying to match up with Roman Reigns. As soon as Roman Reigns displayed dominance in terms of the power game, Edge had to change it up. He went to one of the extremities. He grabbed the arm, and the announcers did a fantastic job in terms of trying to tell the audience why it was such a smart move for Edge to go to work on Roman Reigns' arm, because it takes away all his power, it takes away the guillotine, takes away some of Roman Reigns' most potent offense. As the match went along, there was, Edge, Roman Reigns got the heat on Edge, really did a fantastic job again, getting the heat on Edge and really, slowing him down, beating him up. When Edge began making his comeback, everything in the match was going perfectly. And when the ref bump took place, I understood that the ref bump is there, it's to add drama to the match. The one faux pas that WWE made, and unfortunately it was so glaring, because the camera caught it and they didn't time this out correctly. When the Usos came marching to the ring, first of all, they didn't run to the ring. They came like marching, like bad guys. The thing is that the camera caught Rey and Dominic Mysterio literally standing like 3 feet away from them and just watched them come down to the ring, and they kind of like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000 go, and then they went and had the little, the schmoss fight on the floor. I think that I would have been okay with that had the Usos actually gotten in there and done some damage to Edge before Rey and Dominic got in there, because it just kind of seems like it just seemed like it was just like a mishmash of stuff. And the way that they did it made it look bad. It didn't look like it fit in the context of what was trying to be accomplished. In order for the babyface comeback to be effective, excuse me, in order for the babyface comeback to be effective, the heels have to there has to be a moment where the heels are trying to go for the screw job finish. And unfortunately here that wasn't really come to pass very well. The false finish where Edge hit Roman Reigns with the spear, Roman Reigns had his foot on the rope. Brilliant. Perfect. That, perfectly placed. Everything was excellent there. When, Edge get hits by the spear, 1, 2, 3. After Seth Rollins got involved in the match. I thought it was a little silly for Edge to go after Seth Rollins, but I understood where the story was going. You'd figure that Edge would just ignore Rollins and allow the match to keep going. The one thing that I will say for the WWE in this particular instance, when the referee bump took place, and it got to the point where I was like screaming at my TV because I actually got upset watching this. There was a whole 5-minute segment of that match in a Universal title match. They had a whole 5-minute block with no referee in a world title match. That is inexcusable. You have 100 guys in the back, and at least 10 of them are striped shirts. You mean to tell me that Charles Robinson goes down? It took Chad Patton 5 whole minutes to get out there? Inexcusable. Cannot, just no. Absolutely not. It made everything look fake and phony and stupid. That's the one, that and the Usos and the Mysterios, those are like the two. The whole thing with the baby faces and heels fighting on the floor, I can forgive that. It was silly, but I can let it go. There being a whole 5-minute block with no referee, that's inexcusable. Inexcusable, cannot happen. The match ends. You have Seth Rollins and Edge. Seth Rollins steps up to Roman Reigns. Then Roman's kind of looking at Seth like, all right, Playboy, make your move. And then Seth Rollins, starts backing up, and then Edge jumps him. They fight out. They go into the crowd and they fight out. All right, fine. We know now that we have a match set for SummerSlam between Seth Rollins and Edge. Part of me was thinking that with some of the reports that I've heard of Cena doing movies and not being available, I thought we were going to see Brock Lesnar come out in that instance. When I heard Cena's music play, I have to admit, I popped huge. I hadn't had a reaction because it felt like a genuine surprise, because I wasn't expecting Cena. I was hoping for Cena, but I wasn't expecting him. And I think that made it a whole lot cooler. The crowd in Dallas went nuts. And this is a match between these two guys that makes a lot more sense now than when they wrestled last, which was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It makes a lot more sense now because Roman Reigns is in a much, much better position in terms of his persona, his work. He's in a much better spot. And again, although Roman Reigns is clearly the man, but in situations like this, in order to truly cement him, and I don't think there's a whole lot more that WWE can really do, because Roman Reigns has been nothing short of fantastic over the last year since he came back. But having him work with Cena, this is a big time match, and we're going to see now. It'll probably be Cena, then we'll revisit Edge and Rollins, and eventually this is going to work its way probably to get The Rock next year at WrestleMania. I think that if we get that match next year at WrestleMania, some kind of one-on-one match between Roman Reigns and The Rock, that'll probably be the very tippity top of Roman Reigns' story, and then it begins the whole working your way down. Little by little. But this match at SummerSlam with Roman Reigns and John Cena, that match alone, you've already sold out the show. You already sold it out with that one match.
All right. Raw Women's Championship, Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley. I thought this was a really good match. I don't care for the match. I didn't care who was going to win. I didn't care who was going to lose. I don't care to see them ever wrestle again at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Unfortunate
care.
take.
Not because they're not great, because they are, and they had a great match, but I didn't care for the match. I didn't care, right? And it's not their fault. It's the story's fault, which has nothing to do with them. So, but they killed it. They got the fans behind the match. They tried their best to make Charlotte the heel. She even flipped off the crowd. But I think
that seemed like Charlotte Flair got genuinely hot at the crowd. That wasn't her being a heel. That was her, like, I'm getting the feeling that was the woman behind Charlotte Flair getting a little under her skin, that the crowd's chanting, "We want Becky."
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe, or maybe it didn't really bother her. I think they knew what kind of match they were going to have. They laid it out before they got out there. So I'm pretty sure they were confident that they were going to get the crowd eventually, which they did.
Yeah.
So
I'm just talking that one more.
So I think she's been doing this long enough that she knew to play to it. But maybe you're right. Maybe she.
Listen,
I don't know. I don't know if she. I feel like she's been around too long to just not have full control of the situation.
Well,
of course, I could be wrong.
The only reason why I say that is because of the fact that in WWE, they don't allow their performers to do the things that she did, and when they blacked out the entire screen, to basically censor what she did, that basically means she went off script. That's not something that WWE would allow to have happen. The show's a little too kid friendly in that regard.
I don't know if you've been watching Raw and SmackDown the last.
I know
4 or 5 months.
They're pushing the envelope.
They're trying to push it a little bit. I don't think they have a problem with somebody flipping the crowd off.
They shouldn't.
I'm not saying,
especially if you're a heel.
Yeah,
especially if you're a heel. You shouldn't. There should be no problem with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were totally fine with Charlotte doing that. Maybe it was off script, like you said. I don't know. I'm not disagreeing that it's probably off script. Yes, I think you're right. What I'm saying is, I don't think she did it out of emotion. I think she played it up and took advantage of the situation. I hope, because she's been around too long to just freak out like, oh no, and then just flip off the crowd. I don't know if she would freak out like that. But I feel like she has had some freak out moments in the past. And she has acted like she's gone, like, I don't know, she's got flustered with the crowd before. But that was a long time ago. So, I mean, anyway. So, Charlotte ends up beating Rhea, which I don't know how I feel about. I guess before the match started, I was saying if they want this feud to continue, Charlotte needs to win. Because it's been going on too long and nothing has changed. Like, nothing is happening. So if you want to add drama, Charlotte needs to win. It's not like Rhea is red hot anyway, right? Like, I don't think she was way hotter heading into WrestleMania last year.
Yeah, in 2020, correct.
Yeah, she was way hotter. So her losing now, it's like, who cares, in my opinion. But she lost. Then they go to the instant rematch, which pissed me off, but at least it had a purpose the next day. And it was a disqualification. So they didn't pin Rhea twice or beat her twice. I'm sorry, she didn't get pinned. She tapped. Yeah, so Charlotte retained because of disqualification, and then Nikki, A.S.H,
Almost a superhero.
superhero, which I had no problem with.
None at all.
I think she's over. She's always had a special connection with the crowd. And I think the belt did need to get away from these two, even though it's weird because we've been waiting. We want Rhea Ripley to chase Charlotte so that she could have her potentially beat her at a big show like a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania for the title and have a babyface moment. But she's no longer a babyface. The story was trash. It just wasn't working. So, because they got the belt on Charlotte, and then they just take it off her. So now Charlotte has to win it again to tell that story. And I know Charlotte is gonna win it a billion times more because they want her to get to 17. It's like obvious since day one they want her. What they wanted her to get to 17, and that's fine. That's fine.
That's WWE's prerogative. They could do whatever they want.
Yeah, I get it, but we're here to critique the way they do it, right? So,
Absolutely.
They can do whatever they want. And even if it was my show, I think I'd like the story. I'd like that story too for her to be, if she deserves it, and she does deserve it. She is great, and she's one of the best females they've ever had in history. So she's the right person to do it. It makes sense, and if they time it correctly, which is almost impossible to do, but as she gets towards the end of her career, we don't know when that is. If she's at 16 and her last story could be chasing that 17th, that'll be awesome. If she can do it in front of Rick, that'd be even crazier. And great TV, because he's gonna cry like a baby.
He will, and Lord willing, the Nature Boy will be with us long enough to see it. But
yeah.
I mean, listen, the match in and of itself was actually very good. I thought the match in a vacuum was actually quite great, very good. The problem is that, again, we've already beaten this, we've beaten this horse with a stick already. Is the story was ass backwards because Rhea Ripley should have never been the champion. Charlotte Flair should have been the champion and have Rhea Ripley chasing after her. But once Rhea Ripley got put in Charlotte's place because Charlotte was medically disqualified from competing at WrestleMania, then it basically caused a tremendous ripple effect because of the fact that Rhea Ripley was a hot babyface on NXT, and she was essentially introduced on Monday Night Raw as a heel. And there's no way that the fans are going to get behind. Again, the one thing about this show, and this is an overall, right? The one thing about this show was that the crowd reactions were actually a tremendous indicator of a lot of the things that WWE have been doing wrong with their storylines. Over the better part of the last year, the crowd was cheering for Charlotte. Yeah, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte together got them towards the end, but throughout the whole match, the fans were chanting, "We want Becky, we want Becky." Charlotte Flair flips them off, and then for some reason the fans started cheering for her. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, the whole story of this match was Charlotte Flair at no point really worked on Rhea Ripley's leg until the last spot in the end where she pinned her leg in between the post and the steps. If Charlotte Flair wanted to be a heel, Charlotte Flair could have attacked Rhea Ripley in the locker room prior to him and hurt her leg. And that's the story of the match. The whole idea is you're trying to create sympathy for Rhea Ripley to make her a babyface. Not a weak babyface, because if she's the champion, then you can say that the heel has to get some kind of an advantage in order to be able to cheat to win. This is how you get sympathy on Rhea Ripley. What don't you do with Rhea Ripley? You don't have her tap out, have her pass out, and have the referee count her shoulders down. There's so many things about this that are wrong because, again, although Rhea Ripley tapped out, and although yes, I just do not like the way that this whole story was structured, but at the same time, if you're going to try to turn Rhea Ripley babyface and begin to make that move, you had to do it in this match. Begin in this match. Because if Charlotte has to cheat to beat Rhea Ripley, you're doing two things. One is that you're telling the audience that Rhea Ripley's the clear babyface. Number two, Charlotte Flair as the heel is threatened by Rhea Ripley so much so that she has to cheat to get an advantage on her by injuring her leg prior to the match even beginning. So then you have a story to tell to where it's not like a power match and they're doing all of these incredible moves to each other. Because believe me, they did a lot of super cool things in this match. But at the same time, the way that Charlotte normally beats people is with the figure eight. And she never worked on Rhea Ripley's leg, with the exception of that one spot. It's not enough. When she hit it, I was like, okay, I know this is the finish, but they did absolutely nothing to take me to get us there. She never worked on the leg. She never softened it up. Rhea Ripley never hurt herself doing an offensive move that would point Charlotte Flair to attack the leg. Like, there was nothing that was done throughout the course of the match to make that plausible. So this is where, for me, it's like, as much as I enjoyed the match, because it was physical, it was great. Both of these women, the faces, the emotion, especially Charlotte, when all these big moves that she did to Rhea Ripley couldn't beat her. The woman was literally crying. She's like, what do I do? Beefing with the referee, doing everything. Just like these two, Charlotte Flair from a execution technique standpoint as a heel, she's top notch. And Rhea Ripley is not that. She's right up there with her. And Rhea Ripley's a young woman, 24 years old, 25 years old. She's got, a world of potential. It's just a matter that now, if WWE is going to make her a baby face, you have to clearly pinpoint it. The following night on Raw, when they wrestled again in the rematch, I thought to myself, I don't like that happening, because of the fact that what you're essentially doing is, before in the world of pay-per-view, I always used to hate that, because I'm like, you basically make people pay $30, $40, $50 to buy a pay-per-view to only give them the same match for free the next night on Raw. That's a no-no. They did this with a purpose, to be able to have a main event for Raw, but at the same time get the title on Nikki Cross. And I was like, okay, I was fine with it. Do I think that the belt needs to be separated from Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair? The answer is yes. Nikki Cross has gotten this persona over, the superhero persona. And what it does is that it gives opportunities now to the other women on the roster, because although Nikki Cross is very well liked by the audience likes Nikki Cross and they like this superhero gimmick, or at least it comes across that way. What ends up happening is that it allows all the other women on the roster to be able to compete for the title, and it seems a little bit more on even keel. Because when a lot of these women are going after Charlotte Flair, it almost seems like, the result is inevitable. And the way that it was laid out, Nikki Cross, obviously, she did exactly what all the heels have ever done, although she's a babyface. Champions down, she comes out, cashes the briefcase, and wins the belt. Do I think that Nikki Cross will eventually lose it back to Charlotte? The answer is yes, but it'll be in a little while. It's not going to be immediate, because I think that Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley are now going to start having grudge matches and fights that have nothing to do with the title, and then it'll allow Nikki Cross to further develop and get the superhero gimmick over, while working with other women on the roster who might be viewed and perceived at her same level. And then those matches, then they can kind of elevate each other. So again, although I'm not in love with the story and I wasn't in love with how they got here, but I think the end result actually works. It actually works.
All right. Kofi Kingston challenging Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. And this was complete domination and destruction.
Yep.
Which I'm okay with if Big E will one day get revenge.
It was perfect.
If Big E one day gets revenge, it is perfect.
He will.
It makes sense. As soon as I saw that match, literally, as soon as it was over, I was like, okay, Big E needs to beat Bobby for the title. He needs to. It's no longer, let's think about it. Maybe we'll pull the trigger. No, this needs to happen. It's funny because it's almost like, well, we can get to Big E later. But
we love you, Big E.
Not much to say here. Bobby Lashley dominated Kofi. And it seems like it's because of Big E. It's for Big E to get revenge, and that's cool. That'll be great. And we also had on Raw, we had an open challenge. So we had a surprise return. Keith Lee comes. He's the big surprise. Everyone's excited.
Happy to see you back, big man.
Keith Lee is buried. To me, it's buried.
No.
The way he lost was way too easy. Super easy. Easy win for Lashley. No? You don't think so? You thought that was a hard victory right there?
Well, the whole purpose, it was a television match. It wasn't going to main event the show. I thought that the match was it served its purpose. Do I think that there could have could another person have been used in that spot? Sure. But I would, believe it or not, I would have probably put Ricochet in that spot because it's, similar size to Kofi Kingston. He wants a shot at the champion, and then Bobby can destroy him.
Yeah, they literally could have used anyone.
Well, yeah, I think with Keith Lee, obviously he's from Texas. They wanted to pop the crowd. They got the reaction. The match was physical. It's not like Keith Lee did not get dominated. Bobby Lashley did have a hard time with him, and he had to hit a big series of moves to beat Keith Lee. I understand what you're saying because of the fact that you want to see more stock in Keith Lee. I think that I'm okay with it because of the fact that he lost to the WWE champion. Now, if Keith Lee would have lost to, I don't want to say a lesser opponent because that's disrespectful, but perception-wise, a lesser opponent, then I would have felt a lot differently about it. But the fact that he lost to the WWE champion, and the fact that Bobby Lashley has just been, he's in this laser-focused mode, I can understand why Keith Lee would take the L on this one.
Well, I have no problem with him taking the L. This is my thing. It's like almost like they don't want people to get over. It's like you're cutting it just like they did with Zelina. And did you hear the pop Zelina got? We'll talk about that in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like Keith Lee shows up and here's a fresh start. The old booking did not matter because he's been gone for long enough that anything you've done in the past, you can erase it right then and there. If he's going to lose, you don't have to put him in the match. You have 100 other guys that can do exactly what Keith Lee did. If you want to pop the crowd because he's from Texas, you have him win. Not against Lashley because he's not going to, obviously beat the champ. But you can have him face anyone. It's like, why would he lose right now? If you want him to face Lashley and lose, then why not build him up, set up a main event match on Raw in 3-4 weeks, but let him get some wins under his belt. Let him look dominant. Let him look like Keith Lee should look, and then he can come close to beating Lashley now, and maybe he'll be able to get him in the future because he's the young guy. Whatever he should. It's fine that he loses to Lashley. That's totally fine. But to me, it seemed really easy. I get it's a TV match, but that's not the spot, in my opinion, to put. That's not Keith Lee's spot right there.
No, you're right about that. That's not his spot. You're absolutely
right.
So
I think if you, and I know like WWE's attitude or Vince McMahon's attitude is, well, let him prove himself or whatever. Let's see if he can take a loss. And if he gets over, we'll get him. We'll get back to it whenever. But it's like they don't think that these things matter. It's like beating him doesn't matter. I think it matters. I think you had another chance. This is your second chance. When he was given to you pretty much over, where the crowd was loving him or whatever. At home, everybody was loving Keith Lee. You would think.
Well, I mean, again, listen, I can understand the point of view because believe me, I'm with you. The thing is when it comes to NXT and the Raw and SmackDown, NXT does 1/3 of their audience, Raw and SmackDown's overall audience. So again, you're going to shake your head and say that doesn't matter. It actually does, because that means that there's still a larger audience that doesn't watch NXT. And again, does it mean that you shouldn't give them the best opportunity? If he's already over, keep it going, because there's at least 1/3 of Raw's audience that knows who Keith Lee is. I got you. Look, I got you. I get it.
I find it really difficult to believe. I know 1/3 of the cable audience that watches Raw or whatever. I don't know. Those numbers are not real.
That's what listen, but that's what we have to go by.
No, you know what else we have to go by? Tell me what happens every single time. Let's go back to 2019 and before that, an NXT person who is over as hell in NXT shows up on the main roster. What happens?
Most recently, not very good.
Well, what happens on the first day?
Well,
the fans lose their mind. Everybody in the audience gives the loudest pop you've ever heard. Road Warrior pop.
Sure.
You know why? Because they know who they are. They know who they are. They absolutely know who they are.
But think about it. The audience was there. Again, the audience who knows who these talents are people who watch everything.
And that's fine. And who does it hurt? If Keith Lee is over with 15,000 people in an arena, how does it hurt? Like, what are we doing here? Like, if he's over, the people watching at home, it's going to be easier to convince them, right? You're asking me to convince a casual audience, which is not much in my opinion, but you're asking me to convince them that a guy who's not over with 15,000, and we're going to push him, or we're going to treat him right, or whatever. But Keith Lee, who's over with the 15,000, more over than almost anyone in the goddamn show that day, we're not going to treat him, we're not going to book him correctly. Even though he's the one that's getting the loudest reaction out of everyone there. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I don't care about the people watching at home. Like,
well, understand something. When you watch Monday Night Raw, the audience that's in the arena are actually the voyeurs, because the audience that they're targeting is the audience that's watching at home, because the audience that's watching at home is much bigger. Now, yes, does the audience that's in the live crowd, do they hurt or help the product? Absolutely. When the crowd is hot for everything that's going on, and believe me, for the foreseeable future, all wrestling shows that are done in front of an audience, the audience is going to be hot for everything because of the fact that it's a novelty, it's new. Now, again, I agree with you. Keith Lee should not have been in this spot. Not against the WWE champion. I would have probably put Ricochet in that spot, only because Ricochet could give Bobby Lashley a good match, but he'd be there to take an ass whipping too, because the whole idea is that you're trying to prove, continue the storyline with Bobby Lashley of, back to business. Because when he cut the promo on MVP, where he basically threw out the women, destroyed the MVP lounge set, and basically set MVP straight, and then on the Money in the Bank show, where he went and did exactly what needed to happen: crush and destroy Kofi Kingston. The match was perfect. The only thing that was wrong with the match was in the end that the referee waited for Kofi Kingston to tap out instead of ringing the bell because Kofi Kingston was unconscious. That's the story of the match. Is he beat Kofi up so bad they got to put Kofi in a stretcher. They got to stretcher him out, and Woods shows up because he's concerned for his partner. You show imminent danger, and Bobby Lashley looks at Xavier Woods and says, "You're next. You're next, because you beat me last. It was a BS finish, and I'm coming for you." And when he gets Woods, he breaks Woods in half too. because you got to give Big E a reason to show up on Raw. Yes, he's the Money in the Bank winner, and he can go wherever he wants. And what a tremendous opportunity for E to go to Raw, in a pseudo fashion, reunite with the New Day, but then be able to present a challenge to Bobby Lashley. Huge challenge to Bobby Lashley. Now, again, I'm very, very happy that Big E won the Money. I mean, super happy. But at the same time, there's work to be done with him still. But I think that they're laying down a good foundation if indeed this is where they're going. Because I know now that after Bobby Lashley, and again, I'm kind of going back and forth here, guys, so I apologize for that. But on Raw, after Lashley beat Keith Lee, we get the entrance from Goldberg. And again, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit when Goldberg came out, because I'm like, man, this is the card WWE plays all the time. But I will say this, that segment worked, because when Goldberg came to the ring, it's all the same thing. It's typical Goldberg stuff. Goldberg came to the ring, he got right in Bobby Lashley's face and barked at him, "I'm next." Now, the segment that was good, but the thing that made it great was how Bobby Lashley reacted. Bobby Lashley was incensed, and he looked like he wanted to rip Goldberg's throat out for stepping up to him and disrespecting him, to the point where MVP had to restrain him. And I'm yelling, "Let him go, P. Let him fight." It was perfect. Now, is the match at SummerSlam going to, if we, projecting to SummerSlam, is that going to be a great match? Probably not. It's going to be a smash. It's going to be a typical Goldberg match. The whole idea is that with Lashley, it's the exact same thing that they had to do with Drew McIntyre, is get him wins against top, perception-wise, top-tier names that can continue to build the aura around Bobby Lashley. Purpose, I'm okay with it. Would it be my preference? No, it's not my preference. But under the circumstances and knowing how WWE has poorly booked the guys underneath, it doesn't seem like there's an eminent opponent for Bobby Lashley. So to use Goldberg in this spot, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm cool with Go. Look, I'm cool with Go. At the end of the day, I can only judge it. I don't have any numbers in front of me. I don't know who's getting the biggest rating in WWE. I don't know who's selling the most merch. I can only go by one thing, and that's fan reaction. So if one guy's getting bigger reaction than the other guy, I'm sorry, he's more over than the other guy. So
you know what? I can, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I can buy that, but in this particular case, it's a small sample size for this reason. Because of the fact that the fans who have not seen a live wrestling show in 18 months, they're going to be hot for everything. So as much as I want to be able to go by that, in this particular moment, I'm like, yes, it's a good first start. Let's see how it happens over the course of weeks and months. And if the reactions are still the same, then your theory holds true.
I'm just saying, in general, if I'm a booker, I think that is the best indicator. If somebody who, no matter who it is, if I have a person who's getting louder reactions, that's how it became obvious that Steve Austin was going to be a big deal, because his reactions were way louder than everybody else's. Before he was even a huge star, it's like this. It just started happening out of nowhere, and it's like, oh snap, this guy might be our biggest star. And then they had to change course. And back in the day, they would change course, and now they just don't. They just ignore what they hear, like it's not happening. But anyway, I'm okay with Goldberg because at the end of the day, he's over. He's over, and Lashley needs opponents. And if he's gonna have a nice, long, interesting reign, he needs different types of opponents. And you're right, he needs to beat big names too. It can't just be beating up on the same guys every week. It's like we need fresh faces. And Goldberg is old, but he's still a fresh face because we don't see him that often. If we see him twice a year, once a year, maybe twice. Yeah. So, look, it's a good matchup. I don't think they're gonna do Lashley Lesnar, which I'd rather see Lashley Lesnar than Roman Lesnar, because I've seen Roman Lesnar 7 times.
Well, correct, but I think that the Roman Lesnar match would be interesting to see now because of the dynamic being so different. Because knowing that Heyman, who's always been attached to Lesnar, and then having him now clearly, Paul Heyman clearly attached to Roman Reigns, and presumably Brock Lesnar's going to be the clear babyface, then there's a lot of dynamics here that are a lot different. You know, yes, we've seen the match half a dozen times. Correct, we have, but it's always been with Brock being the heel, Roman being the babyface, and, you know, Roman fighting from underneath. I don't think that would be the case in this match. They would lay the match out differently to, you know, to construct the story. Lesnar versus Lashley is a match that I would like to see, but not more than Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. The way that they're currently presented, or at least the way Roman Reigns is currently presented.
Roman Reigns beating Lesnar does nothing. Does nothing for him. He's going to beat Cena. He's probably going to beat The Rock. Why does he need to beat Lesnar? Lashley needs to beat Lesnar. He needs it 10 times more than Roman does.
I can believe that. I can buy that.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it would be interesting to see, but I don't even want to see Paul Heyman have to choose right now. Maybe 3 years from now, make a choice. I'd kind of like to see them on opposite shows with Paul Heyman being with both guys for now. I don't want to see Lesnar without Paul Heyman. I don't think it works. Not as good.
No, it doesn't, because Lesnar can't cut a promo.
Yeah, he's not a great promo. He's great, like, if he has a quick one-word outburst, Lesnar's good at that. Like, out of nowhere, like, just one word, boom, it'll be the perfect word.
A quick one-liner and hand the mic over. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, he's good at that, but I don't need to hear him trying to sell, trying to convince me to buy a pay-per-view or whatever, or come to the building or whatever.
No, he's not that guy. He's not that guy.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. So for me personally, and I wanted to see Lesnar Lashley. First of all, I wanted to see it for real. When Lashley was fighting, I was like, oh shit. Like, Lashley could probably be a great matchup for Lesnar.
But I don't think Lashley ever made it to the UFC, though, right?
He didn't make it to the UFC, but he was pretty dominant in I don't know if he got to fight in Bellator, but he was in Strikeforce for a little bit. He might have
Strikeforce, that was the one.
He might have had one fight in Bellator or 2 fights in Bellator. I don't remember where he was doing his fights, because the secondary brands always are like in my head as one brand, like almost. Anything not UFC is in my head like one brand. So I can't remember, because they only last a couple of years and they go away and then a new one shows up. But Lashley was pretty damn good, and he's very similar to Lesnar in real life. I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily a great striker. Probably can't take too much of a punch, but a great wrestler, can take people down, freakishly strong and freakishly athletic, and can do ground and pound. It would have and they're about the same size. I think their weights that we get in WWE are not that accurate. I know
they're slightly embellished. They're embellished. They're probably both about 245.
In his UFC prime would cut weight to make the 265, and Lashley wasn't close. So Brock might be, for a shoot, 20 pounds heavier than Lashley. It's just Lashley's so muscular that he looks like he's 270, and maybe he is now. But when he was fighting, he was in the 40s, like 240.
Yeah, I don't see him being. Yeah, he's probably about 250. I wouldn't give him much more than that.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So if Lesnar comes back, I don't know what I want to see. I'm sure that they can probably convince me. Maybe if Roman Reigns but that's the thing. Roman Reigns is going to be a pain in the ass. Lesnar's going to be the babyface. I'm going to want Lesnar to beat him, and he's not. So it's like, you're wasting my time. It's like, he's not going to beat him. If the plan is The Rock, you can't beat Roman until he's done with The Rock.
Correct. And but what ends up happening is that with Bobby Lashley, you can kind of say the same thing too. Although with Lashley, you can poke holes a little easier, but there's still. I think that right now with WWE, they're actually in a very good position in the fact that they have 2 very dominant champions. One of them who's pretty much Teflon at this point, at Roman Reigns, and Bobby Lashley, who's a work in progress, but man, he's well on his way. So, there's good there for WWE, because they got nice stabilization at the top in terms of their champions. It's a matter of making sure that they have a nice influx of opponents and not necessarily have to, dig into the playbook of, digging into the past all the time to give them opponents. It works periodically, but it can't work all the time. And I think it's something that, WWE has to truly work on in their booking to be able to get the guys who are in the level below to be able to come up and be able to challenge and truly challenge.
All right, men's Money in the Bank: Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, Drew McIntyre, Big E, KO, Shinsuke, Seth Rollins. Before this match started,
what's up with the peacock? What's up with the peacock with all the stuttering, the sputtering that they had? The feed went dead, man. I had to find an alternative way to watch it.
Yes, I know. There was a lot of complaints about that. At the end of the day, people were like, "Oh, this makes WWE look so bad." I'm like, I don't think they care that much. They probably care, but if it doesn't affect their ratings, because if the fans get pissed and stop watching, that's one thing. But they're already paid.
Well, and listen, I mean, this is a little bit beyond their control because of the fact that
it's not. They're paid already. This is like, oops.
Yeah. This is Yeah, I mean, this is one of those moments where clearly, WWE and this goes for everybody. Nobody who's producing a program is trying to have something like that happen. This is one of the few times that's happened on WWE programming. It's happened on every other show. But no one's intending for that to happen. So yeah, it sucks and it disrupted the enjoyment of the match for those viewers who are watching it on Peacock. But you can't put the blame on WWE for that.
Yeah. So I thought this match was very fun. I didn't know who was gonna win when the match started. So that was good. It's always good. I was like, they kind of have to put it on a heel, and the only heel that makes sense is Seth, but he's already won it, so that made it interesting, and maybe that's why they have all these baby faces in the match, so that you wouldn't really have a good idea of who's gonna win.
Yeah, you just figure that in a match like this, you would have you have 8 competitors, and you have 6 baby faces, 1 heel, and 1 pseudo heel. Because again, with John Morrison, I don't take him seriously in the heel role.
Not a heel. He's not a heel. He's a heel, but the fans do like him. They don't want him to be a heel, and they kind of Miz is a heel, but Morrison is kind of like yeah, you're a heel, but we like you. You're cool. Like whatever.
Yeah, listen, I think the fans will like Morrison a lot more. And again, this is where Morrison, unfortunately, listen, as great as he looks, and as fantastic as he is in the ring in terms of the things he can athletically do, there's something about him in terms of personality that just doesn't come across. He doesn't really come across like he has any real fire. It's a performance to him, and I think that's an element that's missing in order to be like because believe me, I think that if he had like that true fire as a baby face, I think that he can get over. It's just that I don't believe him. I just think that he's performing and he's excellent in what he does with the acrobatics and all the things he can do. But once you get past that, that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot about him that makes him stand out. And I hate saying that because he's so terrific in the ring.
Well, even if he doesn't, I agree with you. There's something missing. I also don't like that he doesn't evolve. He stays exactly the same for his entire career. Hasn't changed, not a thing. And
this is not just in the WWE. This is everywhere he's gone.
Everywhere he's gone. The only thing that changes is his name slightly, which is fine.
It's always Johnny something.
Yeah, it's always Johnny something. I mean, I've seen him and I've believed him as a top guy, because in Lucha Underground he was kind of a top guy. But something with the way Lucha Underground edits is heavily edited, where they can hide a lot of stuff, so people appear better than they are on Lucha Underground, I think, or maybe they are that good, but Lucha Underground found a way to really show off people's strengths. So I believe Morrison as a top guy in Lucha Underground, and he had a nice run in Impact where I believed him as a top guy. So I know he can do it. I just think he's doing too much of the same. And that's fine. If he's going to be a mid-card guy, he can still be a very important part of the show because he can just go out there, be a lovable babyface who has fun matches, and that's a job. That's your job, and that's fine. We need people like that. So
absolutely,
I think that's exactly what he should be, by the way. That's exactly like turn him babyface, get Miz out of here, let Miz do his own thing, and let this guy go out there, always match him up with another good athlete or whatever, and go out there, have fun matches. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, people want to see fun matches sometimes, and he can provide that. So if that's his strength, fine by me. But he did good in this match. But like I was saying before, you running down the match, and you're like, okay, we know why Ricochet's in the match. We know why Morrison's in the match. And I'm telling my boys, KO doesn't make sense. KO makes sense because KO's the psycho. He's the one who's going to take all the nasty bumps.
He took a nasty one at the end, and he took a nasty one at the end.
He took 3 nasty bumps. He took the first nasty one. They were all on the ladder. Yeah, so Drew was there because it made sense for him to be there. They found a way to get him out the match and continue his feud with Jinder, so that's fine.
Yeah, I'm a little.
I mean, why, you want them to win? I mean, he doesn't need it.
No, not at all. Listen, I'm okay with the way that they got rid of McIntyre. I'm glad that they were able to get rid of McIntyre in the match. It's just a matter that, again, it's a perception thing. It's a perception thing, and I know that for the fans in India, they view Jinder Mahal, Veer, and Shanky as big stars. I get it. In the continent of India, they view it that way. Well, I don't even know. I don't think India is a continent, but the country of India, they view them as big stars. But when you look at it in North America, the North American audience doesn't agree. The North American audience would damn near say that those 3 guys are underneath talents, the way they're presented. And to have them, no matter how they get to Drew McIntyre, they got to him and they basically beat him up and dragged him out, and Drew had no response. I'm like, okay. Do I look forward to seeing a potential match between Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre? The answer really is no. Because not Drew McIntyre, but Jinder Mahal needs to be presented on Raw with his crew, winning matches, getting over as a heel, and then you can tell the story with McIntyre in some kind of surprise fashion. But they just basically presented them. And I'm sure that, Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal, they're good friends. They have the whole 3MB history, and they want to be able to tell that story. It's just a matter that to the audience, the North American audience, we don't view Jinder Mahal, Veer, or Shanky as anybody who should be getting the upper hand on Drew McIntyre in any way, shape, or form. And this is where, if they get to the match at SummerSlam, it's 5 weeks away. You can tell good stories, but at some point, Jinder Mahal needs to wrestle on Raw. Jinder Mahal needs to win matches. Jinder Mahal and his boys need to be able to show some level of dominance. And on Raw this week, they did a promo segment. And then what did Drew McIntyre do? All by himself, beat up all 3 guys and took a steel chair and just beat up Shanky and left them black and blue all over. That's the image is a little off when you have these 3 big men who beat up McIntyre the night before, and then the next night Drew McIntyre, by himself with the assistance of a chair, ran 2 of them off, and then left the biggest one and beat him in the ring. Just left them laying like a sack of garbage. These are the positions to where the only way that it worked, I'm not going to say the only way, but a way to work is to kind of have, establish Jinder Mahal and his crew a little more, because it just kind of comes across like they're rushing this so that Drew McIntyre can have a match and to give Jinder Mahal, a high profile match. My fear is that if Jinder Mahal loses in a match against Drew McIntyre, there's no reason for a return match. There's no reason to see it again. And the thing is that Jinder Mahal looks great. He's worked awfully hard to look the way he does. And I'm sure that the audience in India looks at him as a huge star. But you got to establish him as a star to the North American audience, because that's the audience that's going to be watching the match live, in person, in Las Vegas. And if they believe, the audience believes that Jinder Mahal is a job guy, then it does nothing for Drew McIntyre. And if you're trying to get Drew back into the title picture little by little, if you want him to have obstacles and difficulties, you can't present it with guys who the audience believes are not at his level.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with them matching up. I agree with you that Jinder should be having matches and winning at least a couple, but they're not going to do that because, unfortunately, WWE's philosophy is have Drew and Jinder face each other every single week. You know, it could be 3-on-3 or whatever, 1-on-3 or whatever. Instead of having Jinder like have a couple of matches and then cut promos on Drew, it's gonna be them in matches together leading up to the match at SummerSlam, which sounds crazy, but that's how they do it. They've done it with everyone. They did it with Rhea, and you know they're gonna do it. That's just their philosophy. It's almost like the house show thing where you face the same person every week, which is fine because it's a different crowd but now it's not a different crowd. It's the same crowd.
On TV. You're seeing it on TV every week. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I understand.
So they're doing, you know, I wish they would do that where Jinder would go out there and have matches against the 50 other guys they have signed, but they're not going to do that. Maybe they will, but there's no evidence of them wanting to do things like that. So
that would be my recommendation.
It is. Look, it is what it is. I'm okay with the matchup either way because I think Jinder used to be a job guy, but then he won the championship. He was no longer a job guy. He was a semi-top guy, and once he lost the title, he didn't necessarily go back to being a job guy. He kind of been like an in-between, middle of the road, you know, nobody cares guy. Like it's like
I don't know what's worse, being a job guy or being that guy.
But he's been missing a lot too. So it's like, what do you really remember? I kind of remember his feud with Randy. I remember his run as champ. I don't remember much more. So I don't see him as a job guy. I don't see him as a top guy, but I don't see a lot of people in WWE as high as I see Drew. And they're not presented that way. Almost no one is. So everyone's going to be underneath Drew except for Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns, maybe AJ Styles.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys, but what I'm saying is that that's all the more reason why WWE has to do a better job with Jinder Mahal in terms of presenting him and having him win matches. Because what ends up happening is that if you're able to present him winning matches, and listen, you're not going to put him in there against enhancement talent. You're going to put him in there against Humberto Carrillo's and the Ricochets of the world, you know, maybe the Mansoors of the world, you know, people like that. Guys who can give him a good match, can get some offense in because it's not going to be a squash match. But the idea is that Jinder Mahal is establishing dominance, and he's using his henchmen on the floor as, you know, his heaters, and they're able to establish that they're heels and that they're going out there and doing heelish things. And to get Drew McIntyre to draw him out as a means to help the baby faces when they get in trouble. So that's really what it is. It's just they need to go a more traditional route because, again, my fear is that I don't want this to be a one and done because I think that there is some legs to this, and I think that Jinder Mahal deserves an opportunity to kind of be in the mix in the WWE. It's just a matter that the way the company is going about it, I don't think that they're necessarily giving him as good a chance as I think they could.
I will say this, the match with Jinder and Drew that they had recently, I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago or I don't remember how many weeks ago, but
yeah, they had a match on Raw. I remember.
It was actually good. And Drew, that's the best I've seen Jinder. So Jinder's matches to me were left a lot to be desired. And I know Drew always has a good performance, so maybe it's a Drew thing. But Jinder was working with some good guys and still having really bad performances, and maybe working with Drew is what Jinder needs because Drew has found like the balance. Drew kind of pleases everybody. He pleases the new fans, the younger fans who like more action, but he pleases the old school guys because he's physical, and
Their psychology, everything makes sense.
Yeah, so Drew has found like the balance, which I talk about all the time. So maybe this is what Jinder needs, right?
I hope so.
So I think they at least look physically match up perfectly. So that's at least you have
yes,
that.
They do.
And they, like you said, they have the story because they were partners. So there's something there. So I'm okay with it. But back to this match, Ricochet I thought had a great performance, and they've been giving him a little bit more than they used to give him, and he's taking advantage. Every time he gets an opportunity, he at least does something, something memorable. So he's trying to take advantage. Morrison, I thought, had a good performance, and the fans got behind him. Riddle has been having great performances, and Riddle, I think they like him a lot because he gets treated really well, and I think it's because he's kind of doing whatever they want. It's like, do this, do that. He's doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, of course.
And he's doing, like, I guess he does it just good enough. I don't love some of his comedy, but sometimes he does get me. And his matches are usually good, and his performances, his athleticism, and he has a little story going on with Randy. So we're getting close to SummerSlam. I don't know what Riddle's going to do. I'm assuming he can it's one or two things. Either Randy will come back and turn on him, or Randy will be like, you know what? I'm going to mentor you, and he's not going to say it, but I'm going to bring you over here to the dark side and maybe give him edge. Even if he doesn't turn heel, maybe give him a nasty side. But you see when Riddle gets intense, he looks really scary.
Another, I don't want to say toughen him up because Matt Riddle's plenty tough. It's a matter of getting rid of some of the goofiness because, again, Matt, and I say this with all due respect, the way that Matt Riddle's presented, he's like one step away from being with the 24/7 guys in terms of the goofiness department. The way his matches are laid out, and he has good matches all the time, so that's an advantage to him. But ultimately, the goofy character kind of works a little bit with Randy Orton because Randy's so intense and he's so serious all the time that having Matt Riddle there just kind of like, hey bro, lighten up, whatever, just doing all the goofy, because it's almost like a kid. It's like little brother, big brother kind of thing. And Orton always looks like he wants to snap and then he pulls it back. He always looks like he just wants to, coil on him. I think that it works for now to keep them as some kind of a unit, no matter how the relationship is associated. But I don't think it's time to split them up because there's some legs there, and it's actually very helpful to Riddle because it puts him in more higher profile positions, getting to work with somebody like Randy Orton. And also for Randy, it kind of puts him in a position as well where I don't want to say that he doesn't have to do as much work, but it might be a matter that he might be out there as a like a player coach type thing, where he kind of gets to direct traffic but be able to help in Matt Riddle's development, because I think that having Randy Orton around can't do nothing but help you in terms of your in-ring stuff in the WWE. Maybe elsewhere not so much, but in the WWE, having Randy Orton there, that's a huge positive.
Yeah. KO, like I said, he took all the nasty bumps. Shinsuke looks super cool with the all white.
Yep.
I still think it's going to be really hard for him to recover from all this bad booking over the last 3 years, maybe, which sucks because when he first got there, he was like, it was so promising. But a little bit, in my opinion, I don't know.
He's recouped a little.
But I don't see him the way I saw him when he was main eventing
on NXT. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, NXT, even main roster. When he didn't he win the Rumble?
Well, yeah, but even the match,
Fought
but
AJ at SummerSlam. I mean at WrestleMania,
WrestleMania.
and I saw him as a legit top guy. What I will say is maybe because his matches just haven't lived up to to the expectation, and maybe I don't think that's why he's not being booked strong. But I think this is not always the case. But I think with him, it was almost like warranted. Like maybe he doesn't deserve to be a top guy because his matches don't match. In my opinion, they don't really match. But he's looking good, and anyone can always get over again. And King Nakamura, super cool name for me. I like that name. I wanted that to be his name.
Well, there you go. You got your wish.
So I mean, yeah, he's not over anymore. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe he'll get it back. All it takes is a few moments, and then all of a sudden, you're over again. And of course, Big E gets the big win. And with Big E, it's now that I see him win this match, I was under the impression that they gave up on him, that they wanted to push him, but they gave up on him because maybe it wasn't he wasn't what they thought. But now I see that wasn't the case. It was they put everything on pause because there was no fans, and now he's gonna start the push. Now that we have fans, I think that's what it is. I hope that's what it is. But it felt weird to see him win. I'm excited now because of the whole Kofi storyline, and he can go after Lashley. And he did look great, like just on top of the ladder, celebrating, and he's flexing and being intense, and he looked great in that moment. So
listen, Big E is a monster. I think that when the WWE had him as the Intercontinental Champion going into WrestleMania this earlier this year, I thought that with Big E they were going to be able to do more with him. I was a little disappointed in the fact that WWE, it seemed like, derailed his push. Now, do I think that maybe they were waiting for the fans to come back? Yes, and that could be a legitimate reason. I think that the New Day are crazy over with the fans because when Kofi Kingston came out for his match, the fans were just chanting "New Day rocks" and all that stuff. So the New Day as a group, as a tandem, are over with the audience, and I think it makes sense for Big E to win. I think it made sense to put him over because, again, with all due respect, if it wasn't going to be McIntyre and it wasn't going to be Seth Rollins, the number 3 guy on that group was going to be Big E. And I was happy to see E win because, in all honesty, I think that he's the guy that probably needs it the most in terms of getting him to the next level, because I think that he's more than ready to get there. It's just a matter now of putting him in the right opportunity. I think that ultimately he's going to get moved to Raw and he's going to compete against Bobby Lashley. It's a matter that the story hasn't been laid out yet because of the fact that there's still some layers to be done, and it's going to involve Kofi and Woods, and it's going to be I think it's going to be good stuff. And do I think that earlier this year when I said that I thought that Big E would have won the Royal Rumble, he didn't, but I believe that Big E is going to be world champion at some time, either in the year 2021 or early in 2022. He's going to be the WWE champion. Because right now it looks like the trajectory is that he's going to be the guy to beat Bobby Lashley. And if it is, that'll be amazing because he deserves it. He really does.
Yes. I mean, he deserves it, but I don't see him as a champion just yet. So
no, he's not. There's
the match. So please, WWE, please give him something on his way to this. So by the time he cashes in, it all makes sense. I do want to see him win it, and I do want to see him beat Bobby. That's going to be a great moment. So, all right, let's go to the Women's Money in the Bank. Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, Natty, and Tamina. So my idea did not work. And maybe they would have went with it if maybe she doesn't want to wrestle.
I think there was Sonya Deville with the persona is that if you're going to put her to work against Liv Morgan, will that happen eventually? I'd like to believe that the answer is yes. It's just that it's not going to be an upper tier storyline. It'll probably be something that's going to bubble in the bottom and work its way up. At least that's how it kind of feels that that's the natural progression of it, because you didn't see Sonya Deville was nowhere near ringside. She had nothing to do with the match. Nobody screwed Liv Morgan over. It was basically Nikki Cross climbing the ladder while 6 of the other women were fighting, and the only one that wasn't in the picture was Alexa Bliss. And my fear through the whole match was that even though through all of the entrances, if you watch it, Alexa Bliss comes out first to a huge pop from the fans, which is, of course, part of it is that if she's the first person to come out there to start the show, then she's going to get a big pop. But there's a problem with that because she's presented as a heel, but yet the fans are cheering. So whatever, you're going to have to get through that. But as all the other women came to the ring, the cameras were only focusing on Alexa Bliss. So it kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, basically the WWE is telling us who's going to win the match, because no matter who comes out, the camera is always on Alexa. I'm glad I was wrong.
I don't get that. That's bizarre for them to do that.
I'm just saying, but it's you read into those little things. I was genuinely surprised that Nikki Cross won, and I was genuinely surprised in a happy way. I was happy that Nikki Cross won, because this was a match that was really confusing in regards that you looked at the field, and we're like, the person who comes across as the only one, probably the best one to win, would have been Alexa Bliss. But I've already beaten this to death about why I don't like this iteration of Alexa Bliss. We don't want to see Asuka because she's already done it. Liv Morgan still needs some work done to be made a lovable underneath baby face coming up. She has a lot of potential, but she's not ready yet. Zelina Vega, like I said, talented wrestler, but I don't care to see her wrestle, so I had no care to watch her win the Money in the Bank. The tag team champions Tamina and Natty, they were the only heels in the match, because they're baby faces.
Are they heels? I don't think they're heels.
The fans treated them as such. The fans booed everything they did.
Really?
So the fans booed everything they did. So if you watch the match, by the reaction of the audience, they're the only heels.
But are they booked as heels? I don't know. I feel like
initially, yes. Initially they were. And then when they worked against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler,
they were forced to be babyface.
Correct.
So they probably are heels. Okay. So that's fine. Yeah, I mean, not much to say here. It wasn't as clean as the men's match. There was I don't know. It took them a while to get going. Nothing seemed to be working in the first 10 minutes. But once they got going, they did try some interesting stuff. So, yeah, I mean, the good thing is that based on those reactions, even though the camera wasn't on them, a lot of people were over. There were a lot of big reactions.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is where I try not to read too much into it, only because that, again, the fans are seeing live wrestling for the first time in 18 months. I don't necessarily know if these reactions are they're just happy to see them, versus there being a genuine, babyface or heel reaction.
Everyone is playing by it's the same field for everyone. That means every single wrestler that came out had an opportunity to get that pop. But not everyone did. Not everyone got those pops.
Yeah, you're right about that.
As a matter of fact, Asuka for sure, Zelina Vega,
got it.
Naomi, all three of them got. Oh, Alexa. But like you said, Alexa's no. I don't think it's because she was the first. I truly believe that the fans love Alexa and love Bray Wyatt the same. And love the characters too. It's just all the bullshit that comes with it that they don't have to do, but they keep doing it. It's like, stop, please stop.
If you're going to have Alexa Bliss have superpowers, Make her a baby face.
Or if she's gonna have superpowers, make the superpowers make sense, because the fact that she can get people to do whatever she wants and lost this match makes her look ridiculous. Because she could have
because she could have manipulated anybody she wanted, and I thought that's what was gonna happen. I thought she was gonna control Zelina Vega and have Zelina kind of be her surrogate. You know, that only lasted for 20 seconds, but
that's what I'm saying. And then her magic stopped working, and it's like, why not just use the magic the whole match then? If you have magic, it's like, you know. So it's a little weird, but I think the characters are so cool. Her and Bray Wyatt, it's the same exact rules. The character is so cool, and even before the characters, Bray Wyatt's always been really close to the top of the card. He was just not. It's like they never finish. They never put him over the top.
Yeah, you're right about that.
It's like, oh, he'll be fine because he's Bray Wyatt and he'll get over with his mic skills. But I mean, he is over. He's over. He's absolutely over.
But what we're talking about is the next level. Over.
It's like, he won't. Yes, exactly. But he'll always be over, despite all the shitty magic. Despite that, I think Alexa will always be over from now on, and so will Bray. They've done enough in their careers, and these characters look cool enough, and the mic work is so good that they're like just gonna ignore the magic and be like, they're gonna roll their eyes when it happens. Because during this match, the fans were a little, they were sitting on their hands when anytime there was any magic going on, but clearly they did cheer for Alexa and kind of like her. So it's weird how that works. Same thing with Bray. It's always gonna be like that, I feel.
It's a matter that I look at those two personas and I kind of find them to be somewhat unbookable because of the fact that
if you give them magic.
Well, I mean, listen, the reality is that I think Alexa Bliss was not meant to be a wrestler in this gimmick. I think that she was meant to be the Harley Quinn to the Bray Wyatt's Joker kind of gimmicks. You know, she was meant to be the representative, and now that the man behind Bray Wyatt, since he's not available to wrestle for whatever reasons, they're not going to put Alexa Bliss on ice. They have to use her, and if she's created this new persona, then it makes all the sense in the world, you know, to keep doing it. So, like I said, it is what it is. I'm not in love with it. Again, these are the types of examples, and I mean, I don't want to poo-poo on these women because they all worked hard and they all tried. The reality is that the Money in the Bank match is a match that needs to be done for men or for women. It doesn't matter. It has to be done around people who are coming up on the card, people who can benefit from getting the briefcase. In this match, it had the same problem as the men's Money in the Bank match, is that these people, they're kind of all on the same level, but no one's over enough to where you would truly care to see someone. You wouldn't really care who wins. Nikki Cross winning was a surprise, and I was genuinely surprised, and I was happy for the result. But I thought to myself, I was like, if Alexa Bliss would have won, I would have been like, well, that's what I expected. But I'm like, what do you do now? If Asuka would have won, we saw it last year. Let's see, if Liv Morgan would have won, I would have been like, okay, good move, but you got a lot of work to do. They cashed it in immediately with Nikki Cross, and I think that was the best thing to do. You don't want to give Nikki Cross's gimmick enough time to get stale with the audience, so you put the belt on her immediately, and let's see where it goes. Was this match good? Yeah, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't horrible. The women, they all tried. They all worked hard. It was clunky, and it's supposed to be clunky because it's a ladder match, but at the same time, they did a lot of spots where there was a lot of cooperation, and it's obvious cooperation. And that just makes it look like you just roll your eyes like, okay, you know it's a show. The art of wrestling is always based on that, although we know that you're cooperating with each other to create a match, but the illusion of it is that it always looks like a struggle. It never looks like you're cooperating with your opponent. And there were many instances in this match where that happened. So for that, like I said, okay match. I'm glad Nikki Cross won. but there's not much more to write home about that.
Yeah. All right, before we get out of here, I do want to mention on Raw, Jeff Hardy defeated Karrion Kross. And I don't think it's because they don't believe in Karrion Kross. I think it's like, oh, let's beat him and see how he reacts. But this is a television show. This is a television show. Stop with this weird, this kid got to prove himself or whatever, or he has to show me that he's not going to have a poo-poo face if we beat him. Oh, he has to show me that he's going to do business. I don't know what the mindset is, but there's no way in hell they thought, you know how we'll get Karrion Kross over? By beating him. Beating him, and then beating him, not even to Lashley. Not even, you didn't even use a Lashley. You used Jeff Hardy, who's a legend, but you haven't booked him like a legend. You've booked him like a piece of garbage for the past year, just like Rey Mysterio should be booked like a legend, but it's not. I mean, Rey Mysterio's booked a little bit better now, but still.
Much better.
Much better. They're doing good with Rey Mysterio now. I'm okay with it. But Jeff Hardy has been booked like complete garbage. Well, hardly ever wins. He never wins.
But he's not. But in Jeff Hardy's defense, and even in somewhat it's in WWE's booking defense here. For the most part, WWE has not had Jeff Hardy on Raw in many months. He's been working primarily on main event. And I think that Jeff Hardy was also one of those guys that they, for lack of a better term, somewhat put on ice. Although when he was booked on Raw, he wasn't booked great. But I think they put him on ice so when they brought back the crowd, and then they can mention, the fact that he brought his old song. So although Karrion Kross debuted on Raw this week, they were kind of re-debuting Jeff Hardy. It's almost like a pseudo re-debut.
And because they have 100 male wrestlers on the roster, they didn't have to put them against each other.
Hold on. So they booked themselves in a bit of a catch-22 here in this regard. Had Karrion Kross beaten Jeff Hardy, the reaction to the audience's reaction would have been is WWE is doing Jeff Hardy wrong. Jeff Hardy should just leave and go to AEW or something to that degree. Jeff Hardy beating Karrion Kross, although it's not conventional in any way, shape, or form. But if WWE is looking to move Karrion Kross over permanently to Raw and remove him from NXT, although my disposition has always been is bring Kross in as the NXT champion, undefeated, bring him into the Raw roster permanently, and then he'd have to surrender the NXT title. That's the best way to book him coming in. But if you're going to do this crossover thing, I could potentially see a situation where Jeff Hardy was to migrate over to NXT and win the NXT title. So you move Kross over to Raw, you move Jeff Hardy over to NXT, and then Jeff Hardy can basically have a resurgence in his career in WWE, getting to work in an environment and a style that can probably be more conducive to him, working with guys who are similarly sized. They can focus more on wrestling, and the matches don't look as ridiculous because Karrion Kross at 6'4" and 260 pounds dwarfs all the guys on NXT that he'd be working with, to the point where it looks almost ridiculous, although the matches make sense. But the size disparity wouldn't be so much with Jeff Hardy, who stands 6 feet tall and goes 220 pounds. The size disparity is not as much. And I think that might be where they go. Of course, do I love the booking? No, I don't. I'm just trying to think in my mind, how could this work and why would they do this? And that's like one scenario that I can think of, although it's not my favorite scenario. My favorite scenario would be is to have Kross come into Monday Night Raw with Scarlett, mind you, not having Scarlett. And again, I saw it and I looked up, and this is where you and I, we've had this conversation about Karrion Kross, where I've said that I would prefer to have Karrion Kross stay on NXT as long as it takes to work out some of the kinks. He comes to the ring, same music, the smoke, everything. Without the girl, the entrance is flat because Scarlett is the star of the entrance. And I'm guessing the WWE wants to remove that because they want Karrion Kross to be the star. But at the end of the day, if Scarlett is the star of the entrance, and you look at the gorgeous girl, and that's what brings you in, so what? When the bell rings, what Karrion Kross needs to do is rip arms and legs. But again, Karrion Kross still works with this idea of still thinking like, he's still thinking about trying to be safe instead of knowing that he will be safe, knowing that he can put the boots to you and not hurt you doing it. He's not there yet. And it's one of those things for me that when I watch Karrion Kross, and this is why I keep saying it again, I'll repeat it again, WWE needs to get Brock Lesnar to sit down with this guy and, get in his ear and give him some kind of advice. Because again, when I see Karrion Kross, I should feel that vibe of danger, and I don't. I didn't. When he next shows up on Raw, Scarlett better be with him. Because Scarlett adds a whole other layer to the presentation that without her, you got what you got. And I'm not talking about the match. I'm just talking about his presentation when he comes to the ring. There's so much about it, and it was so cool on NXT because Scarlett was the star of the entrance. And it's okay to have her there because she plays her role and she plays it perfectly.
Yeah. So I don't know. The fact that they beat Keith Lee and Karrion Kross on the same night like that is just bonkers to me, but whatever.
Listen, I mean, again, I am not in love with those booking decisions.
I hope you're not, because
I'm not. But at the same time, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the positives of it to not have it be like, oh, if you lose a singular match, because then it's like, listen, you guys can't win all the time. And I know that when you lose, it has to be meaningful because when you lose,
it was his debut, and he's still correct. The NXT champion, and he was undefeated
on NXT,
and he lost to booked as a bum. Jeff Hardy has been booked as a bum. He's not a bum. He's a.
And I'll tell you.
Jeff Hardy should be booked like a top guy, but he's not. He's not booked like a top guy.
And I'll tell you what. I think that what's going to end up happening is that when they next rematch. And believe me when I tell you this, I think that when they next rematch, I have a feeling that Jeff Hardy will beat him again. I have a feeling Jeff Hardy will beat him again. And it'll be a matter that Karrion Kross whoops his ass. Because again, the match lasted but 90 seconds, 2 minutes. So there was nothing there. Jeff Hardy got no offense in that match. He had his one little hope spot where Karrion Kross, fell down. He went for the swanton, he missed. Karrion Kross was going to go for his finish, and then Hardy rolled him up, put his foot on the rope, so he cheated.
Why is a babyface cheating?
I don't know. But again, this is where for Jeff Hardy, this is in theory, right? I mean, in theory, would be Jeff Hardy understanding the kind of opponent he was with and understanding what he needed to do to win. Do I like it? No. And the thing is, what made it even worse, what compounded it more, was the promo that Karrion Kross cut afterwards. Because he looked at the announcer, the Irish announcer, and Karrion Kross cuts his promo, and he's boring a hole at the announcer. Dude, understand something. You're interviewing a heel who made his debut, lost, was embarrassed, and he's pissed about it. And you're standing there like you're in no kind of imminent danger. As soon as Kross stops speaking and he gives you these, the piss off eye, run. Show fear. You must show fear of the wrestler. So again, all the things about this segment did not go well from the very beginning. Scarlett not being there, Kross having a flat presentation. Working against Jeff Hardy, who again, although Jeff Hardy has been booked not well over the last year, he still has a lot of cachet with the audience. Again, you could have booked Karrion Kross against an enhancement guy and have him rip his arms and legs off and be shown as dominant. Because the thing is that you want to show him as being dominant. So when it goes on NXT, now the Raw audience that got to see him might be interested in turning into the other show on Tuesday nights and watching Karrion Kross. So I get it. All of your thought process is correct. I'm not arguing the thought process. It's more a matter that I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm trying to make sense of the nonsensical. Trying to figure out like why would they do such a thing.
I can tell you what's really going on. What's really going on is NXT is not the third brand. It is a place to get talent from, and they don't care what's going on down there. Triple H cares, but the people writing the show in the big leagues, they don't care. They just put the champion.
I hope that that's not true. I sincerely hope that's not true.
Vince does not care. There's no way he cares.
I mean, listen,
he does care, but he wants to prove a point and send a message. TV is not where you do that. It's television. This is part of Karrion Kross' story now. So you took the NXT champion, you beat him easily, and
I'll tell you what I'm hoping for is, and again, my hope is that it leads to something more. Again, I am not going to take a look at that and say he lost his first match, so it's all over. I'm not going to do that. Was it good? Was it good? No. Yeah, you can ask the question why. It's a perfectly valid question, because even for me, my question would be like, why would you do such a thing? But my thought process here is, although I didn't like it, I am willing to say I'm going to take a wait and see approach, because obviously what he did on Tuesday night, Karrion Kross on NXT, essentially getting under Samoa Joe's skin, laying out William Regal, those things make him look really strong on NXT. My hope is that WWE sees that and says, okay, we need to bring that guy to Raw. And the next time he sees Jeff Hardy, it's either, if we're going to commit to a program with these two guys, then maybe Jeff Hardy can win again by cheating, and then Karrion Kross just loses it and leaves him laying, to where when they get the third match, that's when Karrion Kross, rips the head off the snake and leaves him laying and sends a message. But that's kind of where, they might go with it, but I don't know, and I'm going to withhold my judgment. Did I like it? No. Didn't like it at all. But I'm going to take a wait and see approach, because Karrion Kross has a lot of potential, although that performance didn't reflect that.
I just want to make sure that I'm not losing my mind. And you took the NXT champion. So what you used to do is you would bring guys who are over on NXT, you debut them in a cool way, the fans would lose their mind, and it would take you 3-4 months to screw it up. Maybe 6, maybe a year, but eventually you screw it up, and whatever, it is what it is. But now what you think is a better idea is to take the NXT champion, so the biggest prize on that show, right? And I guess the guy who's perceived as the biggest threat on that show, probably next to Samoa Joe, and you bring him up when he's not officially gone from NXT, and you beat him as soon as he gets there. And I don't see how you making Karrion Kross look bad brings any more eyes to NXT. And I don't see how you're taking someone who's over with the NXT crowd, which is a third of your crowd, and now you're trying to convince your crowd that he's good. I don't see how they accomplished any of that. And maybe they will. Maybe they have a grand plan, but whatever. I was just really disappointed.
It wasn't executed well in this particular segment.
I will say that Raw at least had anything can happen.
Raw was good. It was a good show.
It could have been good. It could have been great. It was good.
It could have been great.
It was very good.
It was good.
In my opinion, it was good, but it was also bad. because of
oh yeah, absolutely.
because of repeating matches that you had the night before or that you have for the last 6 weeks. But you had the Cena thing, that's cool. You had the surprises, even though they didn't end up well. The surprise part of it was cool. But then, I didn't like that we're beating guys that I don't think you should be beating. And I don't think you should be beating them the way you did. But it is what it is. I guess we'll see what happens next. We'll see who debuts next week and gets beat. I'm sure it'll be I know who. No, but SmackDown books a little bit better than Raw, even though it should be the same.
SmackDown is a better show. Raw still has a way to go. This was a good show. I'm not gonna get overly excited about it. It was a good show. Let's see what they do this coming week. Again, I want to see a pattern. I want to see a pattern of good booking. If they make mistakes, how do they correct it? That's really what I'm looking for. So again, good show, not great by any means, because they book things that were not in the best interest of, not fully in the best interest at times of the talents. I felt bad, particularly for Elias and Jackson Riker, because I know that they had that, they call it a Symphony of Destruction match, which I was rolling my eyes at, but both guys worked really hard and they beat each other up, but the fans didn't care. And again, this goes to the point of these guys aren't over, and this type of a gimmick match should not be happening with two guys who are not over, because they're going to kill themselves and the audience is going to react to nothing. And that's what unfortunately happened. So that's basically a message from the fans to the WWE writing staff and Vince McMahon. You got some work to do. If you want the fans to react the way you want them to, you have to lay out your stories and structure them in such a way that that in the end you ultimately get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Say bye to
I was gonna say, but before we go, congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. They have won the NBA championship. So to all of our fans out in the greater Wisconsin area, congratulations. Go Bucks. And now you can follow us at the Wrestlebros on the Twitter machine and the Instagram, TheWrestleBros. For Vic, I'm Lou. Deuces.